Hi, Jasmine and Jonathan and Julia. It's the J panel.
Hi, Amy.
Hello. It's so good to see you.
Nice to see you guys. Yeah, for sure. Looks like maybe Morgan isn't be able to join us, but maybe she'll jump in later. Let's go right into introductions. Maybe start with you, Julia, if you could just give us what you're doing now and what brought you to this space.
Okay, so I'm Julia Winter, CEO and founder of Alchemy, which is a Michigan-based educational technology company. And I came into this company as a 20-year high school teacher and who had some quirky ways of teaching chemistry. And I thought about 5, 6, 7, now 7 years ago, that there had to be a way to bring some of these interactive learning tools to more than my school in Michigan. So I started work on building spatial representations of difficult concepts, and bootstrapped for the first couple years, and then got National Science Foundation funding to take it to the next level, and just recently got a Department of Education grant to take our interactives and build augmented reality interactive modules, manipulatives. It's a difficult thing to discuss, but it's a way for blind and low vision students to actually interact with concepts in a way that all students can use. And so it makes science accessible for everyone.
That's great. How about Jasmine, if you can introduce yourself and tell us what inspired you to get into the space that you've been in the past and where you're at now?
Yeah, so Julia, I love what you're doing, especially with accessibility. I'll be talking a bit about that today. So hi everyone, my name is Jazmin Cano. I'm the Accessibility Product Manager at High Fidelity. And High Fidelity is the creator of virtual world technologies. And what makes us unique is our 3D audio, also known as spatial audio, which is designed to mimic sound in real life. So that means for folks who can hear the audio, things that are close to you in this virtual space sound louder, things that are further away sound quieter, and it's directional too. So if you're in the space, it's just so immersive. It's like real life, but in audio. So it does mimic that sound of real life. Now, we're working on a number of different projects, and one of our projects that I can speak about publicly is a 3D audio online space for lots of people to be together in large groups. It mimics being in a crowd where you can mingle just like in real life. Again, because you can experience that 3D audio knowing if people are over here, maybe behind you. And it's just so cool being immersed in that. And it's really cool being able to work on something like this. So when I first joined the company back in 2016, it was software focused, trying to build an internet of virtual reality. And as we know, VR is growing and we're in the early stages of adoption. So we put the virtual world project on hold, and we decided to take the technology like the 3D audio and make it possible to experience on almost any device. So on a laptop, computer, a phone, it's really cool. We want to build the product to be as accessible as possible. And for myself, immersive technology is something that has interested me for a long time. I started playing video games at a very young age and experiencing the feeling of being in another world that wasn't physically there was just so awesome. I went to school to learn how to build 3D environments for games, and in college is where I started working on VR content, building immersive environments with my art. And I held various roles while working in virtual reality. And what I learned about myself is that I really love helping people help wherever I can. I picked up Virginia Gilbert's book, Inclusive Design for a Digital World, and immediately knew that I wanted to help design a product with accessibility in mind, so no one would feel excluded, because being excluded is not fun. And one of High Fidelity's values is to make the product as accessible as possible. I'm so sorry if you could hear that. They're like doing maintenance outside. It's loud for me. So High Fidelity's value is to make the product as accessible as possible, and there is an opportunity to put my interest to use. It was just perfect, and that's how I got to where I am today. And I know we're doing intros now, but I do want to ask everyone, if accessibility is new to you, please go on YouTube and search for Accessibility 101. Microsoft has a helpful introduction that I think everyone in tech should watch. Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Jasmine. That's great to share that resource. Also, I just want to say, you are one of the first people and one of the first women that I saw speak about virtual reality, and that was 4.5 years ago. And you have always been an inspiration. So it's just great to have you.
Oh my God, thank you, Amy.
Jonathan, can you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now and how you got there? You might be on mute. Oh, there you go.
All right, we back? We good?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. All right, guys, my name is John.
Oh, no.
It's like automatically muting me. Okay. You guys can hear me though?
Yep.
Okay. So try it again. I'm Jonathan Williams. I'm the CEO and founder of VRX, which is Virtual Reality Experience. I work as a VR producer, developer, and animator. I got started in VR like 4 years ago. I saw a YouTube.
Oh, no.
All right, I'm just gonna drop this. Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. So I saw a YouTube video of Snoop Dogg and YouTube in a laboratory creating 360 videos. Like, obviously, that's not how you make them, but I was really intrigued. So I kind of dived a little bit deeper, found out what 360 was. That there was like a little virtual reality movement bubbling. And I was like, this is the future. This is what I'm going to do. From there, I got an internship. Had a business background, so it was pretty wild for me to end up in virtual reality. From that internship, I got into the Oculus Launchpad program and ended up winning that, which made like VR very real for me. And it was just not like, a hobby anymore. It was actually my full-time work. Started VRX, and yeah, here we are. We're in like 360 documentaries primarily, telling diverse stories. And recently, since all the pandemic stuff started, we've been moving into like virtual solutions basically for events, summer camps for kids, real estate, and we just did something with Crux, like to bring a play into VR. We did that in Altspace, so that was pretty cool.
Yeah, thanks, Jonathan. Speaking of Altspace, that's the first place you and I met. So this is the first time we've seen each other's
real life.
Real life. Yeah, before it was just avatars. So that is the world we live in today. Related to that, I want to dig into virtual and augmented reality and spatial audio and talk about what you guys are seeing as some of the unique opportunities to build in inclusivity, and how maybe you see this as different from other more established technologies that we've had in the past. I know you guys touched on it briefly in your intros, but if you could just go into a little bit more detail. Jonathan, let's go other way around. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say the biggest opportunities in virtual reality is going to be the democratization of like the tools. Like, it's not like film where you need these $10,000 cameras. Like, there are 360 cameras and things like that, but for the most part, Unity, Unreal, they're free. Spark AR, you can hop into all this stuff, look at some YouTube tutorials, and you can pretty much be making AAA stuff. I mean, of course, there's a learning curve, but you don't need to really acquire anything to do those things. It's all just like personal skills. Another thing is, as far as I guess your actors, your assets, however you want to describe it, it's very easy to diversify. Like in this industry in specific, all it is changing some shaders and making your characters from whatever color to whatever color. Like, it's really not hard. So there aren't too many excuses. So I find that to be very easy, like making things inclusive.
Yeah, I love that. Jasmine.
Okay. I'm actually going to take a few minutes, a bit long here on this one, because I do want to establish some context for where we are right now.
Great.
And I want to share my thoughts based on my experience building VR content generally, so I won't be answering this with the lens of my current work at High Fidelity specifically. And with us being in the nascent stages of immersive technology, it provides a space to explore and build unique ideas. That's really exciting. And with accessibility, it's really important to ensure that immersive technology considers the needs of people with disabilities, including auditory, cognitive, neurological, physical, speech, and visual disabilities. And when you design inclusively, you can create something that benefits people without disabilities or who have temporary disabilities as well. For example, like when someone loses their glasses or when they're in a loud environment and they can't hear audio well, maybe even like when someone breaks an arm. And before I talk about how I see the opportunities as being unique, I want to provide context about the knowledge we have today. And we don't have to start from scratch or reinvent the wheel. That's like the thing everyone should know. There are standards established, like the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. There's also teams out there, like folks at Alchemy Labs, for example, who recently shared their specific implementation of subtitles in XR. This was shared at the Game Accessibility Conference. Andrew Ike, who gave the talk, actually asked people to steal their approach and make improvements. They're like, steal it. And I also recommend visiting xraccess.org. This community is doing a lot of research and providing plenty of resources we can all benefit from. It's like an amazing learning center we can all access right now. And everyone should learn about traditional approaches to web accessibility and about the various types of assistive technologies that people use. So put effort into supporting those tools and techniques so more people can be included. And in case anyone here is new to learning about this, some of those technologies include screen readers, screen magnification software, and alternative navigation methods such as voice recognition. There's so much to learn. And there's also the physical approaches in our real life. You know, you can learn about how that works and then imagine ways to apply that to these virtual spaces, whether it's AR or VR. So all of that is to say that there are a lot of tools out there, unique opportunities I see here are, it's just the chance to mesh real world approaches with exploratory virtual ones, combine those. And what I mean by that is think of, you know, just some tools or techniques that exist and how you can apply that in these virtual worlds. And a specific example I'll provide is, let's see, there's interesting work out there that I can imagine for virtual spaces. So Microsoft has an app called Soundscape to help those who are blind or have low vision. And Amy, I think you know what I'm talking about. I see you nodding. It helps people find places they want to go to by listening to descriptions, directions in 3D audio. So the destination is marked with like a sound beacon, like the sound of the place you want to go is in that direction. And imagine that being built into VR. Like, why not try it, build it, see if it works, talk to people who are blind or have low vision and test it with them. So in my research, I haven't been able to find a lot of established norms for what we're doing specifically at High Fidelity. It's a bit disappointing. However, there's lots of opportunities to grow. I'm actually so excited because we started a project where we are able to engage a community of people with disabilities for research and testing. And I can't think of a better way to build a product than to collaborate with a diverse community of people and learn from them what the product needs to be accessible. And it's just so important because we want to make something accessible from the start so that people aren't excluded. And there's so much opportunity for that, especially in XR.
Thanks, Jasmine. It's a good reminder that a lot of work has already been done and we can leverage some of that. And I love to hear that you're integrating with the community right now and getting real-time feedback. That's amazing. Julia, maybe you can talk about not only some of the opportunities that you're seeing for building inclusivity, but also maybe some challenges.
Well, Jasmine mentioned text-to-speech, and we work with blind people as they test our new product, which uses computer vision and physical manipulatives. And the interesting piece is a lot of text-based education it's really easy for blind people to maneuver through that, or easier than once they get to spatial understanding. So the problem is trying to figure out new methods that exist and complement what is already out there, but then also find methods that are scalable beyond just a single community. We want it to be used by everyone, and that keeps price down. And so that's one of the things one of the real big challenges in AR and VR is actually finding scalable means to have everyone be able to access the technology. So what we're trying to do is develop a computer vision system with off-the-shelf things you can buy from Amazon, and even give out the 3D print digital technology so schools can actually print their own manipulatives, and then make it accessible so it's not just for blind people, it's for everyone. And then students working with blind people. The blind people aren't separate. They're working right along with their sighted peers. So trying to find, like Jasmine said, find ways to be tools that can be used by everyone and as scalable as possible.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of times in emerging technologies and for accessibility in general, cost is a factor. So I'm really glad that you brought that up. Morgan, nice to see you here. Maybe you can jump in and introduce yourself and say how you got into this space, and particularly what you're thinking and what you're doing in terms of building inclusivity.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So I'm Morgan Mercer, the founder and CEO of Vantage Point, and we leverage virtual reality for anti-sexual harassment, anti-discrimination, anti-racism training. So I got into this space actually because I tried an immersive experience. And when I tried it, I was a little bit skeptical at the amount of the response. I knew I was going to have a response to it, but I didn't realize I was literally going to scream and drop my phone. And when I exited the virtual environment, it was a feeling of, wow, if this is the kind of emotional experience that virtual reality immersive environments can elicit, what if we actually took this and we applied it to social issues and issues that allow or require a level of empathy and EQ to actually understand them. So what if we actually took this and applied this to some real world use cases, right, and scaled it out? So that was my first step into VR. And then after that, I started going to hackathons, eventually moved out to LA, went to OC4, and then dove right into the community. In terms of how we build inclusively, so a few different things. Number one is we always make sure that we're building with an inclusive team. It's really important to build with an inclusive team because the people within your team are always going to be bringing up things around their personal experience with the technology. So for example, one of our core ethos of the company is that we're building for everyone. And what that means is that when we build applications, we need to be building it in a way where somebody's grandma could use it, and somebody's, somebody's son or daughter could use it. So we're always building things for the least common denominator, meaning the person who might not necessarily understand the technology. We're always thinking through how can we make things ADA accessible? How are we thinking through making sure that everyone has access to the content? How are we thinking through the way we develop our products so we know that subtitles within a VR experience are not always the most readable, especially if somebody does not necessarily have the best eyesight? So is there a way that we can instead use lip dubbing? So we're always thinking through from the programming design of things, how are we building for the least common denominator? Can anybody, regardless of their disabilities, regardless of the level of accessibility needed, regardless of their level of comfort with the technology, put on a headset or work with our product in some additional format and use the software that we're developing and have a consistently great and easy to navigate user experience.
Yeah, it's such a great opportunity to be able to do this. As we were talking about earlier, we can both leverage some of the experiences that have been already existed for other technologies, but this is a new medium, spatial computing and interacting spatially. And so there's a great way of looking at how we can build inclusivity and diversity and use diversity to expand how these new technologies are used. it's a great time. We just have a few more minutes, but I wanted to ask you guys, since we are in these times of pandemic, has the pandemic influenced your work? And maybe talk a little bit about any of those changes that you think might be longer lasting versus temporary. Julia, you want to start?
Yeah, I'll jump in, because with education, it has accelerated everything. So teachers were very reticent to go online. Now they have to. So all of a sudden that reticence is, I got to jump in and figure this out. Now teachers are tired. Professors are tired. They've been working really hard on trying to make this change, but it's a long-lasting change, and we have to figure out ways to get students communicating with each other in an online environment, because they don't have that communication, that community anymore. And hopefully we'll get back to face-to-face, but build in some of these hybrid systems that allow for a lot of content to be brought to a lot of people.
Great. How about you, Jasmine?
I love hearing what you've seen and experienced, Julia, because when I saw this question, I thought about it and wondered, did the pandemic influence my work? Like, I don't think it did. We had been working remotely for like a year prior to the pandemic, so there wasn't really a change there. So I'll pass the mic to other folks to talk about that. But real quickly, I think working from home, being remote, is going to be a long-term change. I called PG&E the other day, and one of the first pre-recorded messages was like, hey, we just want to ask you for your patience. You might hear children in the background or pets. And I thought that was so cool. It's more human. I'm liking it.
That's great. Jonathan?
I guess yes, work is booming. I feel like a villain because everybody's suffering and stuff, but VR is kind of doing well during this global pandemic. Yeah, nonprofit schools, they're looking to innovate and trying to find new solutions, especially for the whole like face-to-face thing. So virtual reality has been helping, been able to provide a lot of solutions. Most industries are going digital. If you've never been online, like now's the time. You're making some type of transition. So it's been good for me. Shout out to the pandemic.
For sure, we're all used to the word digital if we weren't, or virtual if we weren't used to it before, right? It might not be virtual reality yet, but we certainly all know what virtual is.
In time.
How about you, Morgan?
Yeah, absolutely. So the pandemic definitely changed the way that we deploy. We work with a lot of enterprise clients, a lot of corporate clients. So anything from global public companies to Fortune 500s. And what we actually used to do is we would do in-person deployments where we would do 30, 40 people at a time, hundreds of people at a time. What we do now is a few different models. One's actually a distributed deployment model where we send the headset to your door. Another model is where we actually create experience centers within the offices, and then their employees will come to the office depending on if they're located there. One of the things that we've seen is obviously with Black Lives Matter and everything going on, companies now hiring their first chief diversity officers, the first time in history. We're seeing a lot of that across companies. Every single day I'm hearing about another company hiring their first chief diversity officer. Companies are looking for anti-discrimination, anti-racism training. They're building out broader programming. And so one of the things that we're seeing is we're actually seeing a lot of companies coming to us and saying, okay, well, we actually see VR as an effective medium for doing this, because obviously, there's something with the way that we have or have not been doing things before. And so there's a lot of upside to that, because what corporate clients are saying is that when we're in a world and when we're in an environment where we're behind a screen, we're not interacting with others, it's really hard for us to get that level of presence, the level of empathy, of social interaction. And so a virtual environment or an immersive environment actually allows us to have that, and allows us to have that within an educational capacity. And especially for companies such as large Fortune 100s where coaching might not be applicable, or mentorship type of coaching might not be applicable for things like this, VR is actually a very scalable solution to a lot of the problems we're seeing. So we did end up changing our deployment models, which required us to do a lot of messing around, configuring with Zoom, doing Zoom facilitated discussions with breakout rooms, figuring out how to navigate the complexities of all of the logistics, but we're there now, and it's really great because we're seeing a lot of corporate clients who are interested in VR for these different mediums.
Well, I'm so glad you're building what you're building, Morgan, and I'm really thankful for all of you for the attention and time that you're given, not only today for this panel, but just in general for diversity and inclusion. So thank you very much. Thank you, panel, and we'll turn it back over for the rest of the day.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.